We've showed you for a couple of days a statue in the Edinburgh Gardens in Melbourne. This statue was defaced because, of course, it has a picture of Captain Cook on it. Now, we've shown you for a couple of days the evolution of this story because it is emblematic of just how screwed we are. That normally you would think that when vandalism like this takes place, guess what happens? Well, normally you clean it up and we move on. But no, because there is a socialist councillor in the council of Yarra, he said that they would immediately move to stage 2 in the process, which is to ask the Indigenous community what they think about whether or not this thing should be pulled down. Well, just 3 days after the statue was defaced, we now get this, that apparently the community backs the removal of this statue. It takes, on average, in Victoria, at least 8 weeks for something to move through the planning process in a Victorian council. At Yarra, it can be a whole lot longer than that. Unless, of course, you want to remove a symbol which has stood there for more than 100 years. That has gone through the council process in the best part of 3 days. Now, they're still waiting an official vote to take place from the council, but this is a council that, don't forget, has already banned Australia Day. This is the theme that I've been trying to build all week for you, trying to talk about all this week for you, which is 20 years ago, they were the hairy armpit crowd in the humanities department at university. Pfft, freaks. And then they are the trots that have been protesting for an awfully long time, the same renter crowd that we've been able to write off for a long time. But they've been able to get enough people together in certain concentrations in certain cities to get people elected to local council. And local council is where many of the changes are taking place, where there'll be no community referendum, there'll be no genuine community consultation. Instead, they've got somebody inside the power structure to be able to turn around and give the mob what it wants. Repeat, you try to build something in the city of Yarra, do you reckon you'd get action out of the council within 3 days? Well, most likely this statue will disappear just 3 days after it was first defaced. Which brings us to, again, the double standard about accountability. Apparently, wokeness isn't just a defence against coronavirus restrictions. It apparently means you get to keep holding on to your job even if your boss thinks that you have committed a crime. David Shoebridge is the Greens leader in New South Wales. That lady is a lady who was a part-time staffer for this MP. And David Shoebridge was in the New South Wales Parliament this time last night, and he said that the public criticism had been piled on to his staffer after she was charged with vandalising the statue at Captain Cook in Hyde Park on Sunday. I will not be sacking my staffer for what she did. So 2 parts in this story. One, using parliamentary privilege, the Greens leader has said that the person who works in his office is guilty of the crime of which they are charged. I don't know. We'll have to wait for the process to play out. But secondly, even if he thinks she's guilty, she's still going to be able to hold on to her job. A job that, by the way, isn't paid for by the Greens. Parliamentary staff are paid for by the New South Wales taxpayer. If there's a different arrangement, we'll talk about it then. This is the type of bloke who believes that there must be maximum accountability for the things that he doesn't like, but for somebody who has defaced, allegedly, but according to him, defaced, a piece of public property, sure, you get to stay. Reminds you a little bit of the Sally McManus rule, which is it's okay to break the law if you think the law is unjust. We've just gone through a period of time when millions of Australians have either lost their job or gone close to it, in part because they had to follow the rules that their businesses were not allowed to open. In part, we followed the rules that meant we weren't able to visit our families for Easter. We weren't able to visit our mums for Mother's Day. We weren't even able to gather to honour those that have served our country on Anzac Day. But apparently, you can still continue with a taxpayer-funded job if you work for the Greens and you defaced a piece of public property for the right reason. And apparently, if you deface the right piece of public property in Melbourne, they'll agree to get rid of it in just 3 days. But that's not the least of the crazy. Again, speaking about green derangement syndrome, a former Greens MP in Victoria believes that Victoria needs to change its name. Yes, the entire state's name must go because it's about that evil Queen Victoria. The Aboriginal activist and former Greens state MP Lydia Thorpe has said that a new name could be considered during the treaty process, which is playing right now between Indigenous communities and the state government, and that anything that is named after someone who caused harm or murdered people, then I think we should take their name down. By the way, it isn't just Victoria. Also on her shopping list of name changes is the state of Queensland, because of course Queen is the monarchy, and the monarchy's terrible, and the monarchy's white, and that created all the problems. Given that we're talking about the colonial past and how everything's named as a result of this invasion of this country, why shouldn't we negotiate that? The treaty process is one that, look, it's worth talking about, but it's one that is playing out right now in the Victorian and Northern Territory governments. This is a person who will have access to the table. One of the demands will be changing the name of the states. Remember, it's too easy to say it'll never happen. Because did you ever think that there would be a socialist, an outright open socialist that would be elected to local council in Australia? It happened. Did you think that the response of authorities after the defacing of a monument would be, we agree, we'll take it down? So, probably this won't work. But in this crazy time, there's no guarantees, because the crazies, they are on the march. Oh yeah, and slightly awkward moment here for one of the wokest parts of the Australian media and their British ancestors. Now, The Guardian, or the Turnbull Times as I like to call it here, after all, the former Prime Minister, one of the great acts of him as a Liberal Prime Minister was to help to get this thing off the ground. Well, they're all into slavery. They're all into the lashing of white people about things that have happened in the past, as if all of us aren't aware of that past and don't want a collective future that is going to be better for everyone. Was there slavery in Australia? Yes. It shouldn't even be up for debate. Well, then, we learnt something about The Guardian in the past couple of days. That The Guardian is now facing calls to be shut down because its original founder was somebody who employed slave labour. Originally, the Manchester Guardian, that was the paper which was founded in 1821 by John Edward Taylor, using profits from a cotton plantation that used slaves. And during the US Civil War, the paper had sided with the Southern Confederates, you know, the people fighting for slavery, against President Lincoln, who wanted to abolish slavery. Slightly awkward, isn't it? So you get to keep your jobs because you're woke now? Or you get to keep your jobs because the person who originally started the whole thing, slightly problematic. Dave Sharma, the Liberal MP for Wentworth, he wrote quite excellently on Twitter, "What is that verse about reaping what you sow?" Of course, nothing would happen with The Guardian, and I don't think it should be shut down for the record. But of course, they think we should be shut down because we disagree with them. Oh yeah, and also, another thing, we thought Coon Cheese was where the racism existed in your supermarket. Well, I'm sorry, Coco Pops. Apparently that's the new one. Coco Pops, according to a former MP, are racist, particularly the use of the monkey logo. I don't know what they think about, Tony the Tiger, and great, I don't know, but the Tiger lobby will be out shortly. This MP, by the way, do we have a photo of this MP? This MP is a person who is quite fired up about all of this, and she was a former Labor MP. She lost her seat she didn't quite lose her seat. Why did she have to leave Parliament? Oh, that's right, she went to jail. So this person who is trying to say that Coco Pops is the top of the agenda, well, here's the problem. She went to jail for lying about speeding. But she now has the moral authority to police what we do and don't call our breakfast cereals. Apparently, a group of police are in trouble as well. The Oh So Work march is continuing. Their crime, dutifully reported by the ABC tonight. And take note of what the ABC is willing to run as a story versus one that I'll show you in a moment or two they weren't willing to run at all. Elite New South Wales counter-terrorism police are under investigation for a mock acknowledgement of country at a Christmas party. What is their crime? Please present the evidence to the mob. A senior police constable rewrote and then delivered a mock acknowledgement of country at an elite counter-terrorism unit Christmas party in Sydney last year. Soon afterwards, members of the Tactical Operations Unit, they were asked to leave the bar for unruly behaviour, and eyewitnesses have told the ABC that a copy of the speech was left behind on a clipboard. New South Wales Police is now investigating this incident. Apparently, Big Brother is also in trouble. Big Brother, the reality television show over there on Channel 7, it's too white, apparently. Oh yeah, be careful about what T-shirts you wear as well, because this is a bloke who is a coach of a football team in the United States, a college football team. He's the guy who is on the right of your screen, and he is wearing an OAN or One America News T-shirt. It's very pro-Trump, and that pissed off one of his players, who said, "I will not stand for this. This is completely insensitive to everything going on in society, and it is unacceptable. I will not do anything with Oklahoma State until things change." So the guy who wore the T-shirt, which was a television station that was pro-Trump, well, of course, he had to apologise to save his job, didn't he?
They helped me see through their eyes how the T-shirt affected their hearts. Once I learned how that network felt about Black Lives Matter, I was disgusted and knew it was completely unacceptable to me. I want to apologize to all members of our team, former players, and their families for the pain and discomfort that has been caused over the last 2 days.
He wore a T-shirt of a television station. Oh yeah, and big tech, they're getting together with lefty TV networks to try to make sure that conservative voices are not heard on the internet. I'll let Tucker Carlson explain via Fox News this afternoon.
Now it is happening. Google is acting directly to shape what people can say and what they're allowed to speak. It's a direct effort to stifle free speech.
It looks like NBC, the network that coddled Harvey Weinstein and Matt Lauer, by the way, had partnered with a foreign left-wing group in Europe to go after us and to use Google to go after us. But this is a pretty terrifying example of the power that you have between the unholy union of corrupt media and monopolistic tech oligarchs.
Nothing to see here. You've just got woke media working together with big tech to make sure that voices they disagree with aren't able to get ads. Completely fine. You know that Seattle zone, which is 6 city blocks in the middle of a city that is now a city, within a state, within a country, that now wants to have its own rules, its own laws, and of course no police to enforce those laws. Used to be called Chaz, and now it's called CHOP, and now it's called WTF. But the police in Seattle have said that no, this is not a cop-free zone. Let me explain why it has been accused that police have not actually been policing crimes inside the area, which is being patrolled on its borders by the oh-so-woke with guns. John McDermott, this is a bloke who owns an auto shop just outside of the CHOP area, or Chaz. He told a local TV station that protesters broke into his shop and he detained a suspect who stole money from his cash register and then tried to set fire to the building. The bloke called police 19 times, but nothing happened. He said he finally had to give in to other protesters' demands, who knocked down his fence to let them, well, avoid mayhem getting crazier, because both he and his son had guns. The protesters had guns as well. So he called the police 19 times. Things didn't get out of hand, but police didn't turn up. But then we hear this from the police chief of Seattle. No, police definitely turned up. They just observed the location from a distance. So now, in the city, within the city, within the state, within the country, where apparently woke rules exist but cannot be policed, the police won't answer your phone if you call when people are even trying to break into your shop, and they will stand back and just watch it all happen. But don't dare say the police didn't turn up. And don't think that happens here. I mean, there's no examples I can think of that happened today of police not really intervening when protesters decided to set up their own city within a city, like what happened today in Brisbane, when major roads were being blocked off by another version of the same protest that was Extinction Rebellion, that's now Black Lives Matter, that will be, I don't know, We Hate Tuesday. No arrests today. They just turned up to the situation and observed from a distance. But that only happens in America, right? But to be honest, we should all feel better, because we now know that coronavirus can be cured with wokeness if you're a protester. We know that as long as you defeat the racism in the supermarket, the problems like syphilis and babies being born in South Australia, it all just magically goes away. And also, finally, we've found another way to make sure that coronavirus won't have a second wave. They're banned throwing snowballs in Thredbo this winter, which is so sad because I enjoyed it when it happened to me last year.
And if everybody holds the snowball.
Oh, to know that the snowball effect is the coronavirus.